Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bethesda Bubble Podcast. My name is Alan, and today we have a pretty polarizing topic, but first we're going to introduce our co-hosts.
I'm Lemon Lime Emil.
Yeah, I'm Jack.
My name's James.
I'm Bennett.
Rod.
And I'm Alex.
And welcome to the podcast. So today we're going to be discussing the topic of religion and its pros and cons. Anyone want to start? And by the way, before we begin, actually, we are all from very, I'd say pretty diverse religious backgrounds, so slight trigger warning if you're easily offended by like anything having to do with religion in either an adverse or positive manner. So yeah, and who wants to start?
I'll take this one because I think about this stuff a lot. I say religion is a positive. Obviously I'd say that because, I'm Christian, but I think it is, for one, it provides a moral backbone, which society otherwise lacks. People often will tell you that their alternative is to go by intuition or kind of the subjective morality. But that one, there's technically no way to be wrong under that system. There are different ethical systems you could ascribe to, like care ethics, deontology, or whatever. But for the most part, it's not exactly definite. And no one perfectly follows one or the other. They follow a mixture of them. So I think that people need an objective, hard set of rules. And then from there, people argue, if there's so many, then statistically it's pretty ridiculous that just this exact one will be right. So obviously people, faith, I'm not saying that devalues someone's faith if they blindly believe it, but a lot of people just believe something because they were raised that way. And while I came to the same conclusion that these people did, but I think it's less respectable if they've kind of just, been born into it. But
Yeah,
it wasn't very substantial. I was just kind of gibberish to flex.
No, it was good. Anyone want to add on?
Well, yeah, I also agree because, back then, people really didn't give a crap like what you would do. There wasn't as many police, so I'd say people made religion as a way to, not inherent good, since obviously the church has also done some pretty bad things, but they wanted to give everyone a good meaning to their lives. And so they tell them, well, you have to do good. Well, most of the religions are you have to do good to end up somewhere where it's even better than what you're living out. So I think it's really good because it explains a lot of the questions that people don't have answers to. Science didn't have answers to a lot of things back then. So having a purpose in life is really good for a lot of people, and it gives people motivation to do things.
Yeah, so just like Alex, I think about these types of topics every day pretty much. So as you guys know, I've been a religious Muslim for most of my life, and I guess gradually in the past couple of years I've just become less religious because I started becoming more open-minded, thinking for myself, and I realized how I disagreed with a lot of what was in major religions. But I consider myself to be spiritual now. I sometimes call myself an agnostic Muslim. I definitely believe in a higher power. I believe in God. I just don't think that religions do a good job at properly uniting people and capturing this sense of a higher essence, if that makes sense. And I feel a lot of people who follow religion follow it blindly and don't think for themselves. And I guess those people eventually they become happier because they're not thinking pessimistically. Then they think that God is always gonna save them if they need it, and that they can repent for their sins and that they can go to heaven. So I think by the end of the day you need a balance between science and rationale, and then some sort of higher dimensional type of thing. I don't know.
I agree. I think in terms of religion, it's a kind of weird thing where there's two sides of it. Or I'd say over the course of history, I think religion probably hasn't been that good of a thing. It's caused a lot of controversy, such as we were just talking about before the podcast, Martin Luther, that kind of thing. I think for today, in today's world, I think religion's really good, like you guys said, for a moral backbone. It's a very good, and for at least for me personally, I always think of myself am I doing this I don't know what I'm trying to say. I guess it's just good to know that if I live my life well, and if I'm a good person, if I'm a faithful person, not crazy faithful, not totally orthodox, but if I'm very just a good person in general, then I'll have an end goal. I'll go to heaven and I'll have a good eternity. So I don't know.
I think the nature of heaven is something I think about a lot because I don't know exactly if it's what people think it is. Like, I've been reading up on it, and I've been led to believe that it's sort of a collective consciousness situation, wherein since if people's actions are determined by their motivations, their goals, whatever, like they're things that drive them to do what they do, and if everyone is united in the presence of God under a completely rigid, non-flexible. Everyone follows the same morals. Everyone wants the same goal, closeness to God. Everyone in heaven is united under one perfectly conforming banner. There will be absolutely no individuality. People wonder if you'll even have your same form or if you'll just be kind of like a soul ball or something other thing we can't comprehend. So I've been wondering, I've been thinking like heaven, I think it's doubtful. People, like to say like, oh, you'll see your family up there. I think that it's something that you won't mind once you're there, but I think it's not as comforting as people like to think on Earth, because I think it's definitely more bizarre than most interpretations see it as.
That's a really good point. That's how I used to think of heaven for a bit. I think that like when you die, I honestly don't believe in hell because like I'm kind of one of those like objective morality people, So I think like but then I sometimes think like when you die, you probably just become like one with the divine. I sometimes think of it like that, and yeah. But like you won't have like your feelings and your personality there. I don't think, but it won't matter to you at that point because you'll be with everybody else, I guess.
I mean, it's hard for me to tell. Like, actually, Alex's first point was actually a very deep philosophical thought and it was very interesting that we started off the conversation with that. But I think it's interesting to speculate on the afterlife, and I mean, I consider myself an agnostic atheist, which means that I'm not completely opposed to the idea of a higher power, but like I need actual evidence, like for me personally, or substantial evidence, I guess. And I feel as if this subjective moral righteousness that Alex was talking about a little earlier is kind of built on preconceived notions as we progress as humans. And I think that once we have a good foundation, all these preconceived notions kind of guide us, and eventually we just become our own person as we become adults. And I don't think that we necessarily need a higher power to tell us whether what we're doing is good or bad. Now, I'm not completely opposed to the idea. I think it's actually very good, and I think it's, like, in terms of principle, helped a lot of people, but I just don't think it's, like, a necessity for humans, necessarily.
I think it is, though, because I think without an afterlife as a motivator, morality is useless. Otherwise, it's completely self-serving, and there'd be no reason for it.
Exactly.
I think the fact is, if there was no afterlife, I would have no reason other than, the reason, for example, that I don't go out. There are many reasons I would not go out and blow up a bunch of people, but I think one obvious one is, for one, I would become hated, sent to jail, and likely executed. And the other one is I would most certainly go to hell in the afterlife after my execution.
Consciousness is all we know. Like, you can't really use something as an incentive, in my opinion at least, you can't really use something as an incentive when you don't know it exists. Because
but you can use the threat of one, though.
Building your entire life on that speculation is just...
I'd say you can use the thought of it. Like, obviously, you can't, like, use it and say, like, yeah, I'm going to heaven. Like, you can't say a guarantee, but you can definitely use, like, I use that every single time.
It's the little hope that really counts in the individual.
It's called faith. It's called faith for a reason, right? Like,
exactly.
You know it exists.
Yeah, faith. The concept of faith itself implies a leap in faith.
I mean, obviously, I can't give any of y'all evidence to be like, I have actually been or seen God himself, but like there are moments where
other than Mormons, allegedly.
But there are moments where at a time of need, I pray and substantially something good comes out of it. And, I know that doesn't mean, like, one can argue that's just like, oh, that's just coincidental. But, like, it's kind of, like, as Bennett just said, it's called faith for a reason. And, like, again, I don't want to push religion on people. But, like, for me personally, it's a good thing for me. It makes me feel...
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
I'd say I do the same thing whenever, like, I'm a time where I'm in need of something, like, to happen. Like, I pray, and sometimes it does happen. And I lost my train of thought. Anyways, I completely forgot what I was going to say. Either way, so I had a kind of, I guess, a point about, like, heaven and hell. So, for one, I find it kind of odd that the Pope, like, didn't the Pope say hell doesn't exist a couple years ago? Wasn't that a thing?
Pope Francis is a very strange. He's very controversial in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, he's done some interesting
Are you
things.
talking about Benedictus or Francis?
No, Benedict, no.
I think.
I don't believe a pope has ever been accused. There have been priests, but
I think Francis has.
Yeah, no, it was Benedict. Anyway,
Francis. I don't think Francis had. People might have.
Francis wasn't.
There was some accusation.
Either way,
right.
I know Francis said that hell didn't exist. I know that he just said that LGBTQ people can go to heaven. Anyway,
yeah, Francis has alienated a lot of
religion. Either way, I had a kind of interesting point that I guess you guys can talk about as well. Do you guys think so? I've always thought of hell until recently. Actually, I always thought of hell as just kind of like a play dough, just a giant gaping
lava bath with racks and chains.
Basically, just inside of a volcano. And I've recently came up with the thought that do you guys think hell is just being a ghost on Earth? Because if you think about it, it's like
Among Us.
I'm just saying, think about it, because being on a ghost on Earth would suck, because evidently there are scenarios, I believe in ghosts, I believe in spirits and stuff. Imagine being a ghost. You have no way to actually make contact with people, and you're able to see everybody you've ever known.
I think it's more of a limbo sense.
Well, I've actually considered that for a few, because Earth is the domain of the earthly, and that is the opposite of the godly. So and hell is described as life without God. The only problem with that theory is that would imply that God is completely not on Earth whatsoever. Yeah. Which is, it's debatable because he is considered by many to be sort of MIA in the past, 2,000 years roughly. Yeah. But I think that it's just impossible to know what degree of agency God currently is acting upon the current universe. For example, there could be hundreds of asteroids that would be colliding with Earth if not for his intervention. We would never really know truly, because it could be on an infinite scale. They could be galaxies away or something. It's obviously it's kind of, you can't disprove it, you can't prove it, so it's not the strongest argument. But I think that we can't truly assume that he is completely inactive to any extent.
But there's no, in the essence of it.
Possible, but I would say not likely. I would say hell is most likely a domain that's not as much, the lava baths and torture devices. But I think it's a realm where there's absolutely no morality. Like it's just not a thing, and people just kind of.
No, I was just saying that's kind of one of my worst fears in life is being I don't know what it is. It's just kind of being there, but no one can hear or see or interact with it. You can see them and try to interact with them, but I'm just saying that's what I think of as
Well, hell would be.
I think that means
would be a world devoid of love, care. Everyone's
exactly. You're just
morality would be gone.
In my opinion, being a ghost. Sorry to interrupt, but I feel in my opinion, being a ghost is when someone has something that's unfinished. It's kind of weird, because I've seen in cartoons and in shows and I don't know, this is just my opinion, but when one has their unfinished business finally rested, they ascend to where they were supposed to go.
I think most people leave with unfinished business. I doubt that because we would have an insane amount of ghosts allegedly.
No, but I mean something so significant.
Too.
I think it has to be something so significant.
Are you getting this from Five Nights at Freddy's?
No, not at all. No.
The 5 Minutes of Freddy's
monsters.
Kids with unfinished.
May you not do.
No, I was because I've seen other stuff that it kind of depicts the same thing because something very significant has happened to them, and in order for them to to figure it out and find unrest, they find rest, they can finally ascend to the place that they belong.
Are you talking vengeance? Because that's one of the most significant.
I wouldn't say vengeance, but something caused them to stick there, whether it be suicide or I don't know, something.
Maybe you guys think being a spirit on Earth is purgatory? It's the.
I think it's limbo.
That's what a Catholic might tell you that.
Actually, no. From what I've heard about the Catholic Church, it says, well, for example, in hell, they say that no one's It's funny because I'm Orthodox, but I literally looked it up because I wanted to check the claim if Pope Francis does believe in hell or not. And I got a very interesting question that says, does the Catholic Church believe in hell? And they say the Catholic Church teaches that no one is predestined to hell, and that the Church's teachings on hell is not meant to frighten.
I don't think anyone.
No one is. That defeats the whole purpose of the religion for anyone to be predestined.
The whole point of religion is
it's not meant to frighten. That's the thing. It's a call.
That's why people get baptized. It's because of original sin. They get it wiped out. So basically, when you get baptized, you basically have a fresh start in terms of sins that you.
Well, what it is?
Baptized multiple times. My dad says
I have not actually been baptized.
Baptizing is
child, but it doesn't count
drinking the wine.
When
you go in the wine, it's like Jesus' blood, and then you eating the bread is like Jesus'
I don't find the very specific things. You can believe in the afterlife. That's totally fine. But the very niche things, you gotta have this bread, this wine.
Well,
I agree. It's more symbolic.
I don't see the basis for that.
Well, no.
Well, actually, I was gonna say in terms of baptism,
I'm with you on that. I do agree. I do deviate from most Protestants in that I believe that faith and works are required. I think that faith alone cannot sustain you because there's just so much ridiculous crap that you could justify under that alone.
Wait, sorry to interrupt, but I'm literally looking this up, and I feel like what I was just saying, being a ghost is like being in purgatory, because it says here, according to the Catholic beliefs, they say
Well, they ask
purgatory.
you to pray for souls in purgatory to be good.
It says
there 9
purgatory
rings of
is
hell
the-
and
that's
one-
what it
aren't there
goes-
9?
that's why-
There's
dude,
9
that's
stages
why
to
there's the
hell,
whole
and
thing
one
about-
of
All
them
right, one at a time. One at a time.
Because like
okay,
that's
here,
what-
I'll talk. There's
Yeah.
like 9. I saw this. There's a bunch of things where it's like they represent hell as like 9 stages,
Yeah, 9
and
circles.
one of them is limbo,
Yeah.
which is like the first stage, which is like.
Are you talking about
closest to
hell?
the
Are
earth.
you talking about hell or the universe? Because I've heard something like that.
No,
This is
it's
hell.
I think
hell.
that's
It's
hell.
like limbo, greed, blah blah blah. But the first one is limbo. So maybe it's
The
like
other one's-
as they're going to hell, the first one they have is limbo, where they can like.
I don't think you progress.
I think
limbo's
all
a
the way
chance.
Down, if I recall, I'm not.
No, you don't progress the way
But
down.
I think you
Just-
get sent to
I don't
one
know.
in particular
Here, I'm
based on
looking
the
it up.
severity of your.
It
sin.
says here, purgatory is the state of those who die in God's friendship, assured of their eternal salvation, but who have still need of purification to enter the happiness of heaven. So kind of like the same thing with like the ghost thing I was mentioning earlier.
Like there's COD
There's-
zombie Easter egg steps where you gotta collect zombie souls, or just fill the canister. Just
All right, so
All
yeah,
right,
reading
all
it
right,
here,
hey.
it's like
Alpha
9,
Omega.
the 9 rings of hell, where it's like limbo, lust, gluttony, greed, anger.
Yeah, so the 7 deadly
violence,
sins.
fraud.
Yeah, that's-
No, well,
But it's like the
It's a
first one is
variation.
like the
Oh,
souls of. Oh wait, this is a book.
Alan said,
Oh,
I kind of
yeah.
agree in terms of like the little stuff, like baptize. I feel like baptizing probably is like, I don't want to call it like crap, but I mean, it only happened because the basically all the poor people who were in the church, like basically there was a bunch of poor people in the church, right? And they saw the rich people in the church and all the priests and stuff like eating bread and drinking wine. And they were like, dang, like I want that. They kind of had a whole, that was like part of the Protestant reform, is that like all these people need to. Protestant Reformation is all these people are like, yeah, we need to get the same.
Do you
like,
guys want to go around in a circle in the order I mentioned in the chat and explain our reasoning for our individual beliefs?
I think that's a good
No.
idea.
yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, just
I
to
guess.
give the viewers some basis, All right, so we'll start with Emil, I guess.
So I basically just mentioned like what I believe in and why.
Yeah, just like why, and if you've ever metamorphosized your beliefs.
I've always been a Christian, Armenian. So like, I guess one can argue family relations is probably the reason, because Armenians are like crazy about Christianity. I mean, after all, they were literally like the first. Correct me if I'm wrong. The first place to like discover Christianity, I believe, or like the first like area to have started it. I don't know. It's something about them being the first with Christianity, and I never really questioned it. I just kind of went with it, and I don't really have questions about. I'm like, honestly, like I'm perfectly fine with the teachings I have learned and the morals I have set. Especially with because Christianity really helped define my morals. But I don't feel forced. I don't feel pressured, and I guess one can argue. I'm not a heavy Christian, because I guess we can get into this later. But like for example, someone being homosexual or being a different, sexuality,
Mhm.
like one can be, find the same gender attractive, people pull the Christian argument that's a sin. For me, I personally, I don't care. So like, I guess it's in a weird sense. Like, for example, lust, it is a sin. Yes. However, I feel like it's a perfectly natural human biological thing that we all have. It's hormones. And I don't want to go on. Sorry. It's just like, I'm Christian, definitely. I definitely assure you that. It's just, I guess I'm not too strict than other people,
All right, moving on to Jack. Are you comfortable sharing?
Yeah, so I guess the reason I'm like I believe in religion is just that I don't know. I think for a long time I kind of like I remember actually when me and Alex were younger, like I would always sleep at his house like basically like every day in elementary school, and we would always kind of talk about it, and I was always just kind of disregarding it. I was always like, yeah, it's crap, like it's stupid, like it's not a real thing. And I forget what happened. Something happened where I prayed. Like in 8th grade, I forget it was something about a girl, and then I prayed about something about a girl, and then it actually like happened, and I was like, dang, like the girl, like I don't know, it was something like I forget, but then I was like, dang, like oh wait, that actually happened, and it might have been by chance, I don't know. Either way, I was like, well, Or maybe you know what it was? I think it might have been homecoming freshman year. I think I prayed the night before I asked to homecoming freshman year. Sorry to drop a name, but you know, like I think I was something about that, something about homecoming, and I prayed, and it, you know what I mean? It
No,
actually
that's fine,
happened.
that's fine.
Anyways, that's why I believe. Yeah.
Moving on to James.
I was brought up as a Christian, but I guess I didn't really go to church, so I didn't really listen to all that stuff that much. But like my beliefs is that like it's like science first and religion second. So basically like everything we can explain with science so far, I believe. But like stuff we can't explain with science, I think is like it's like kind of given to religion since like you can't explain everything, obviously. Like the meaning of life has literally been like the biggest question for so long and no one has the answer to that. And like almost all religions have like an answer to that where it's like, oh, you go to heaven, this happens, you die, I don't know, stuff like that. So I just think, you know, there probably is a higher power. There most likely is, since science can't explain everything, so there must be something that like started everything and all that. So yeah, there definitely is a higher power, but you know, science might explain that eventually.
Okay, so for me, I was raised, you know, I was able to choose, you know, whatever religion I wanted. You know, I was curious, so I went to church once, and I went again like a few years later. And I didn't, you know, I believe that I still do, that, you know, there was some reason for, you know, events to happen. So that's part of the reason why I went to church, and I didn't really expose myself to a variety of religions, but I didn't love it, and I personally think it's something like entirely different than what we discovered, which is why I agree with Alan, the whole atheist agnostic thing, and that's where I stand.
Next up, Faraz.
Yeah. So, by the way, earlier when I said I'm all about objective morality, I actually meant the exact opposite. I think that there's really no way to there's really no way to say that my sense of morality is more valid than yours, because we each have different experiences and backgrounds, and that's like the basis for like that. Like our socialization is how we derive our ethics and all that stuff. And I feel like the thing about I already said a little bit about my religious background. I guess like when I was little, I used to always think that like you had like I kind of just believed out of fear. Like I would be like yo, if I don't like pray or if I don't like believe in God, then I'm gonna go to hell. That's scary as hell, you know. No pun intended. But yeah. So, but I feel like belief out of fear, and I've talked about this a lot. Belief out of fear isn't genuine belief. If you just believe out of fear, then it's not. Then you just like. I don't know. I feel like you're putting yourself on a lower level. Like you're making yourself lesser, and not actually thinking for yourself. I think religion is only useful when you think for yourself. I think religion should be about what you bring to the table if it's gonna be a part of your life. You know.
Uh-huh.
But then a lot of people say like, oh, I believe in science. I don't need religion or God. And yeah, science is great. We love science, obviously, but there are a lot of things. Science has its limits. There are a lot of things that science can't explain. So that's why I think there is some need for divinity. I don't think you have to necessarily pray or follow major holy texts, but that's like like I said, I'm spiritual. Like I meditate. I try to be in tap with my soul.
Right.
That's something I believe in. Then I was gonna say some other stuff. Like I was taking a quiz today on religious beliefs, and one question was, what is the purpose of religion? And I think it kind of differs from person to person. But one answer choice that I saw that really stood out to me was to dull the pain and existence and to dull the pain of existence and uncertainty. And that just made a lot of sense to me, because I feel like a lot of people use religion and then follow it blindly, like as a coping mechanism to not feel sad. And if you actually look at lots of different people who follow religion strictly tend to be more happier than atheists. Because I feel like at a certain point, once you start to get like super smart and logical and rational, everything just becomes more meaningless and become nihilistic. And you have there's no,
bro. Sorry.
Sometimes I'll just be like late at night in my bed, I'll just be thinking like, yo, what's the point of everything? Like like nothing really matters. Everyone's a hypocrite. There's no such thing as justice. Blah blah blah. It can get like really depressing. Now I just have to dumb it down and like do something shallow to feel happier. But yeah. So I guess everything, you need balance in everything. You know?
Yeah. Alex, you want to finish this off, or actually I'll go after you.
Of course. I actually, believe it or not, I was an atheist for the first, I would say, rough 2/3 of my life, because I grew up. My father was religious, my mother not really, and I attended church every 2 Sundays because my parents divorced, so I did whenever I was with my father. And it was mostly, I was unconvinced for the most part for most of my life, because I was much more concerned with imagining myself, fighting robots or something on the stage. Children can't comprehend religion very effectively, so I just found it to be a dull waste of an hour and a half for the most of my life. But I started reconsidering it once I started thinking more about philosophical matters. Like, for one, I know this is often critiqued in the community of philosophy, but I think that Pascal's wager is a good starting point for the faithless, where it's the premise that if there is no reason to be atheist because there is no reward for it. If you die and you correctly knew that there is no afterlife, there's no medal for you waiting at the end. You rot in the ground and get infested.
I'll put an image of it on the screen so that the viewers can see it. So
yeah, whereas if you do believe in religion, you either are wrong and there's no detriment to you, or you are correct and you are granted eternal life with God, or whatever your religion believes. I'm going off Abrahamic. And I think that that's not necessarily a basis for valid faith for a full lifetime, because it's, as for us, it's based on fear. But at the same time, I do think that fear is the most genuine human motivator, more than money, more than love, more than anything. Fear is what motivates almost all action, I think. So in a way, it's actually the most genuine because it's the most human, I think, rather than being the most false. And I think that that is ultimately the reason why people say that religion is a fairy tale for people who are, afraid of the dark, they say. But I think that in a way, people who they're not thinking that it should be just as frightening that the possibility of a hell exists, and they're completely denying the existence of a objective moral code. If they're wrong, there is eternal suffering for them, awaiting them, presumably. And that, I think they are afraid of that. And they invented subjective morality as a way to cope with the fact that they're not at all adhering to what could possibly doom them to an eternity of suffering. And I think people don't think about that very much, or at least as much as they should. I would say that religion is also necessary for the fact that some people, this might sound a little, egotistical, but I think some people are just intellectual cannon fodder. And I think that the idea of individualism is much overrated. Some people just aren't meant to think. They're basically human insects almost. Like, they're not wrong. There's no problem with that. The world needs people like that, and there's nothing wrong with it. But there are some people who just shouldn't be doing much thinking. They should just listen to the smarter people, or the people who, have more of an idea of what's going on and comprehend, more complex ideas. And I think that religion is excellent because it gives these people something to, it gives the lower class laborer something to, he comes back from a hard day of laying bricks, and, he's assured that his hard work is going to pay off, and it will. And without it, it might just lead to, as Faraz was saying, the emptiness of thinking, I've done this, and at the end there will be nothing. That just crushes a lot of people. I don't think they really think about what happens afterwards. Especially, I know a bit off topic, but never mind. I've talked enough.
No, you're good, man.
Okay, I was going to say, the Book of Revelations is of a special interest to me because Christian occultism is not something, I studied much. I know it has a very strange, following on Twitter and stuff. But what is interesting is there are weirder aspects of the Bible, undeniably, that someone could come up to me and say, well, if you take the Bible this literally, you should go up, you should tell me, yes, I believe everything described in the Book of Revelations will come to pass. Which is tricky because you have you have angels with massive earth-stabbing swords coming out of their mouths, blood rain, all kinds of crazy, hectic stuff that looks like a death metal cover, if you imagined it right. And I think it would be very difficult for all of us to read this and go, yeah, this is going to happen. But I think it's important to measure that everyone was saying, science is, it can't explain everything. I think that even existing science is constantly disproven. Science is an ever-changing subject. 20 years ago, they would say fat was bad for you. Now they're saying it's necessary to, help you grow, become more fit in some senses. Think of keto. So I think that there's more room for innovation than there is.
That's a great thought, Alex. Okay, so me personally, I am, like I said, an agnostic atheist like Bennett, and I had the choice of growing up with desired religion. My family isn't really religious. I'm fully Iranian, so I guess in terms of like environmentalism or my environment, is mostly Muslim. But I just didn't really, I didn't really wasn't taught the basis of it for me to be indoctrinated at a young age. So I understand everyone's points, and I think to the average viewer, I think everyone can understand where these 16-year-olds are coming from. But for me personally, I'm not like extremely educated on Christianity or Catholicism or Islam or Hinduism for that matter, but I do believe that there needs to be lucid evidence for me personally. Again, this is all my opinion. Like actual apparent evidence, and I think for me to live my life with religious, I guess, morals. Like I still live a moral life, and I think I've socially constructed my own morals without the need of a pre-existing construct, which that is religion. And I think that I really, I guess I've kind of done it on my own. I don't think for the rest of my life, yeah, maybe atheists are a little less happy throughout their life, but I don't want to live something that I never truly believe in from the very, very core of it. I want to believe in it if I'm gonna base a lot of my life decisions off it, or I'm gonna base a lot of my actions off it, or if I'm gonna base my entire temperament off of it, realistically. So, yeah, I don't know. That's me personally. I might change my mind in the future if Alex converts me. But yeah, anyone want to take the floor?
Yeah, come on, Alan. All right, I have a good topic. So, everyone here, unmute. So, do you think that everyone here, a consensus? Do you guys think that God is all powerful?
Exactly.
Now, dude,
What paradox?
I saw this
It's
coming a
basically-
mile away.
Okay.
It's like
Let's
if God is all powerful, can he prevent evil? And if no, he's not all powerful. And
All
if yes,
loving.
This
yeah.
guys, we're already at 33 minutes.
Does
We
he
might have
know
to
about
actually make a part 2 to this. I'm not kidding. So
all right, maybe we'll do that next
maybe
time.
maybe
But
that's a
it's
good question for
topic.
next
Yeah,
time.
that's a whole episode right there, the epic.
Yeah.
That
Right,
is
yeah.
a tricky
So
subject,
now that
right?
we've established our philosophical beliefs pertaining to religion, I think it's safe to say that we all respect each other, and I think we all respect all our religious beliefs, and we all know where we come from. And again, none of us
Emil, you got something to
none of
say?
us have a very immoral route to our religion. I think we're all like accepting of others, no matter their background. Thank you guys for watching. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and listening to it. This was a really nice discussion. Hopefully, none of it was taken to heart, like in an adverse manner, by anyone. If you have any questions, you can comment below or email us. Thank you for watching again, and have a great day.